Max Verstappen legitimately has a chance to clinch his 5th world title, and that feels pretty insane given the fact that at the Hungarian Grand Prix he said he may never win another race this season. However, after a number of very good race weekends in a row, Max was heading into this race weekend with a pretty tall order. If he wants to beat Oscar Piastri in this World Drivers' Championship and actually take a 5th world title, he needs to come away from every race weekend from this weekend all the way through the end of the season averaging 10.5 points ahead of Oscar. And after he didn't win the Singapore Grand Prix, I think a lot of people were not certain whether this was still an available option to him. However, after today's sprint race where both McLarens ended up crashing out in the first lap, Max already has 8 of those 10.5 points that he needs before the Grand Prix even starts. And on top of that, he managed to take pole position today, with Lando qualifying 2nd and Oscar managing to fall all the way back to 6th. All of the math aside, given the fact that we don't know how this race will go tomorrow, the real thing that Max's comeback has brought up for me is this idea of championship mentality once again. Max has been a huge threat on the grid ever since he got here, but especially the last 5 seasons. And last season, we saw him take that World Drivers title even though McLaren had the faster car. That was very much this season where we felt like Max had to work for that championship title. And at the beginning of this season, it really felt like there was no world in which Max would even still be in the conversation for the title, which felt so weird. But this has been an insane comeback for him. And interestingly enough, ever since Max has started winning again and getting closer and closer to Oscar and Lando, Oscar and Lando's performances have not been as good as they usually would be. Obviously, we had the lap 1 incident in the sprint race today, which resulted in neither of those drivers receiving any points for that sprint. And while the conversation has gone back and forth about whether or not one of those drivers was at fault, I will be honest with you, this was a racing incident. However, when we look at qualifying today, it was interesting to see how far behind Oscar was falling and how tentative he almost felt on the track itself. At the same time, Lando actually making it up to P2 almost felt like a little bit of a surprise. I do think the confidence of both of these drivers has been shaken, and it's understandable given that Max is the level of a champion that he is, the caliber of a driver that he is. But at the same time, that is why Max is a champion. Even when he has a season where he feels like he should be completely down and out, the second that you open a door on a driver like Max Verstappen is the second that you tell him there's a chance he might win and a guarantee that he will not let up until the end of the season. And I, for one, have really enjoyed watching it. This whole season, we've just been talking about will it be Lando or will it be Oscar? But the idea that with 6 race weekends left in the season, we are looking at a potential comeback of Max Verstappen in a season where he said he may not only not win the championship, but that he may never win another race this season. That is one of the coolest things about this sport. How quickly things can change, how important upgrades can be throughout the season, and how important it is for drivers to have a mentality of never counting themselves out until they are mathematically out of the championship. So for me, I am very excited to have a 3-way battle, and for Max to be hunting down that 5th title. For you, especially after the sprint race today, what are your podium predictions for tomorrow? And which of these 3 drivers do you think is taking the title at the end of the season?